Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to Planet Marzipan, the Fish and Marillion podcast. I'm Meza, and here's my mate.
Craig Houston.
Hello, and welcome to Planet Marzipan. I'm Meza, and I'm here with my good friend.
Craig.
And we have a guest. We have the very lovely Georgina Wistow with us this evening.
Hello.
Hello.
So main thing, are you calling me by my name tonight, or am I just going to be Alan's wife?
Whoa!
Oh, back in the
Somebody
net.
put you up to that, didn't they?
Might have.
Yeah. We'll come on to that person shortly. I've no doubt. It may get mentioned.
Ooh,
The
good
question
shot.
is, do you know when bin day is?
I do know when bin day is. It's
Okay.
Tuesday.
Good.
That's Lucy's bin day.
Yes, okay.
Mine's Wednesday, I'm prepped.
Oh, mine's Wednesday night, yeah. So technically Thursday, I suppose. Are we okay to call you George?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So George is here initially in her capacity as author of the collected memoirs of Ian Mosley, Do I Owe You Money? Which is sold out, I understand.
Not for the first time, actually.
Oh.
This is our fifth reprint, I believe.
Wow.
It is back available on Racket. I checked this afternoon just to make sure that we didn't do a massive plug and then everyone go, yeah, you can't buy it. So yes, it is back in stock. But yeah, we're on our fifth reprint, so it's done much better than we thought. And I keep talking about doing a Kindle version, but
Never mind that. When's the follow-up out?
Yeah, it only goes up to 2019. We want more.
But we'll ask you about
it
the
is
book.
funny.
But because it's your first time on the pod, we get to ask you the question of how you first heard about Marillion.
Right. Well, I mean, sort of fairly normally it was Kaylee. So although there is a funny story about it, which I think I told in John Collins's book, which is that we went on a family holiday to Exmouth, and one of my brothers had a little dalliance with one of the waitresses. And he was only like 15, and up until that point, he'd been calling his girlfriend every night from the hotel. And then obviously he stopped. And then when we got back home, she came round and he did a little confession that he'd snogged this waitress. And then after that, every time Kaylee was on the radio, when it came to the too scared to pick up the phone line, we would absolutely torture him with it. So it sort of became one of those songs that's in our sort of family legend because of that. But then I think I got clutching from the local library. And then sort of around the time Fish left, I'd started doing A-levels and sort of just lost sight of everything. And then this is a really dodgy story. When I went to university, a lad that I got talking to in the Union Bar one night invited me back to his room in Halls so he could play me a band he liked.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it was Marillion, and he played Easter and King of Sunset Town, and then played Heart of Lothian. And I was
I
like,
was going to say, just those two songs, he was very quick, wasn't he? Sorry.
he's going to listen to this.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure he played them multiple times.
Either that, I'm just trying to figure out he wasn't trying to seduce you to garden parties.
I never said he was trying to seduce me. I think it sounds a lot dodgier than it was.
No, we're just trying to make it salacious for you, that's all.
Moving past everything that you're
Moving on.
thinking about, I sort of realised when he played Heart of Lothian that it was Marillion, and then he told me about Steve Hogarth. And then Brave, I think Brave came out while I was at uni. Was that 91 Brave came out?
94.
Oh,
94, right.
yeah.
So, yes, he and I went to Sheffield City Hall to see Brave.
I was there.
Really amazing gig.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever saw them live. And he and I were still seeing gigs on and off together. He lived in Australia for a bit, up until we did the Walls at Oswestry. And then he was getting married, and I think it was a bit like frowned upon to go away for
Yeah.
overnight stays in B&Bs with a woman that wasn't his intended.
Okay.
So,
Wow. Okay.
so yeah, but he's
Great
still a
first.
fan. He's still online and comments and stuff. So
Brilliant. What a great first gig as well.
I know, awesome.
It's all downhill from there, isn't it, really?
Awesome. It's
Hardly.
what was really funny about it actually was, you realise just how completely like insane Steve Hogarth is really quickly when you see Brave,
Yeah.
because I think if that's not your intro, you can think, especially around that time that he's, a bit of a pretty boy and stuff. But coming out like that was definitely like, take me seriously.
Yeah.
This is about the music, etc.
So we will talk about the book, but you have other roles that you sort of do to support Marillion, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a bit sort of jack of all trades, really.
Okay.
And sometimes so one of the things that I do for Lucy is Lucy will ring me up and she'll say, I've got something and I don't really know what it is, but it's in my head. Can you get it out? So like pulling
Okay.
a tapeworm.
Yeah.
Is it with a
So
drill and a scoop?
things like the couch convention,
Yeah.
things like lightsabers. She will ring me with a kernel of an idea, and she and I will kind of just workshop it until we get to a thing we think will work. So sometimes it's just some background stuff like that, and sometimes so I've done merch for every convention right back to Pontins, which is where I met Craig. I don't know if Craig will remember this story.
Is it
He
broadcastable?
wasn't passing those dodgy notes again, was he?
No, we decided, because we just didn't know what we were doing because it was our first one, that we would put a cake in the chalet of every person who had a birthday that weekend.
Yeah, we did plaques for Barry, didn't we, for the top of the
Yeah,
cakes? Yeah.
and you did cake toppers for them all.
Yeah.
And Lucy and I had gone down to Pontins a couple of days before, so we'd been up to Jumping Jacks for the support for the warm up, and then driven down to Pontins to start getting stuff ready. And we were stuffing envelopes because for the first about 5 conventions, we used to do the welcome packs ourselves the night
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, that's not something Stephanie does now. She has the lovely Port Zealand guys organise all of that. But we were stuffing envelopes and Lucy's phone rang and she said to me, and I might get the car wrong, but she said, parked about 500 yards up from the entrance is a Ford car
Yeah, it was
with
David's, yeah, Dobby's.
some Geordie lads in it. Can you go up with your laminate and get them access onto the site and take them to the bar and I'll meet you in the bar? And I remember because I always think it's weird because you don't drink and you ordered a Blue Wicked.
Yes.
Because it was the
Does
first time I'd ever heard anybody call it a Blue Wicked.
he does occasionally drink, but not very much.
But yeah, that was the first time I met you, was to come and escort you onto the premises because it was the night before fans were allowed on.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
I was at Pontins as a punter, so I was sharing Lucy's chalet and I'd gone a bit early. But supposedly I was there, I'd bought a ticket, but I was sharing a room with Lucy. But then, when they were doing setup, I was just a bit of an extra pair of hands and can you help us make the museum look pretty and all that sort of stuff. And then they loaded all the merch in and realised that they hadn't really got anybody to do the selling of it. So, and the Web UK, they like doing stuff like that, but they also like to see their friends. So they kept
Yeah.
disappearing as well.
Yeah.
So I finished up in that cupboard under that stairs at Pontins for the whole weekend. And then at the end of the weekend, Colin and Eric came to check that I'd emptied it all out and counted it all and everything. And I said something like, oh, well, thanks for that, lads. You know, it's the best 170 quid I've spent or whatever it was. And they went, oh, we thought you were here as staff. That's why we've been using you all week. I was like, no, I paid. So they gave me a lifetime membership to the Front Row Club, which was just starting, which
Yeah.
was quite handy because it meant I'd got a full catalogue of Front Row Club CDs, which I've given back to Racket because they didn't have a full set.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Well, brilliant.
That first night in the bar in Pontins on the night before it started, because I think it was the first time I actually had a proper conversation with Pete. It was where I first met him, and we're sitting
Yeah.
having a good crack on.
Yeah, we had a
Nice.
ukulele or something it was a banjo, I think, in the museum, and he kept picking it up and playing it. I was just absolutely stunned that he was like multi-instrumental.
Oh, he's a little legend.
And so that's sort of ramped up to what you do at Port Zealand, which is a huge affair, isn't it? You've got, is it like 12 people helping you,
Yeah.
or more than that sometimes?
Yeah, 12 people. In fact, I'm just in the process of confirming the team. I've been doing Port Zealand work over the last few days, but yeah, 12 people. Some of them have been with me since Butlins, which is quite nice. So I've always got some new and some who've done it before, which is really nice. But the thing that's been really lovely over the last few years is that it's sort of gone on to me being able to make the choices of designs and what we sell and some of that stuff, which I sometimes do, like during COVID when Lucy wanted to do lots of free stuff for fans, that meant they didn't have a revenue stream.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of coming up with fun merch ideas that were quite cheap if people didn't have very much money that they could get involved with.
Yeah.
But also some of the other stuff, like I'd been wanting to do the Brave scarf for ages. So we did a fifth, I think we made 50 because Lucy doesn't wear scarves, so she thought no one would like it. And then we ordered 500, although that's the same with the cushions. I'm going to get these numbers wrong. But when we ordered the cushions to begin with, I think I ordered 50 and we finished up ordering something ridiculous like 5,000.
Fantastic. It's a velour cushion.
Mm,
I'm just modelling my own here.
yeah,
So what's your most obscure merch item that's actually gone into production?
we've had some ones that have absolutely stiffed, which have been quite funny.
I wondered.
So I thought that we should do bike seat covers because everyone was getting
Yes.
quite into cycling.
Yeah.
No one bought those.
They were
Um,
afraid of sunlight bike covers, were they?
I don't, to
I
be
think
honest,
they
I
were.
didn't.
Yeah.
If there is, usually what happens is I will get a list of everything they're playing at the convention, and then I try and think of fun merch ideas. So when they did Brave last time, I ordered like 500 bottles of hand soap and we put
Yeah.
a Brave thing around it. It said, now wash your
Wash
hands.
your hands, yeah.
Apart from they sent us the antiseptic stuff, which at that point nobody had ever heard of and everyone hated. So we ended up with 500 bottles of that. The thing I was really surprised that didn't go well at all was we did when it was it .com? You're gonna hate me because I'm supposed to be a fan, but I don't know what anything's on. The only person who's worse at is that us or not us is Ian. Um, but we did lip balms with not a waste of lips written
Oh,
on
yeah,
them,
yeah.
and people didn't like it. And I literally was serving people at merch going. But then conversely, things like teddy bears, which I campaigned for years, absolutely flew out. We sold 500 of those in 2 hours the first year we did them. And that T-shirt with the wings on the back, the Eldorado T-shirt, that I designed, I think, before the album had come out, and
Yeah.
nobody was interested in it at all. So sometimes I have some terrible ideas, and sometimes I have some great ideas.
I think your strike rate is pretty good, though.
Yeah, the best ones are so Lucy is really amazing. Firstly, because I was talking to her a couple of years ago about, look, I've been doing merch at Port Zealand for a really long time and you're much more professionalized now. So if you actually wanted someone else to do it or you wanted to do it or Stephanie wanted to do it. And she was like, God, no, you're the only person who's ever done it. And so we wouldn't have a clue what to do. But as a result of that, she really trusts me. And because she really trusts Mark now, with some things, she'll just be like, oh, just thought. So, like with the tea towels, I've been wanting to do a tea towel for ages. Lucy didn't want to. So she said, oh, go on then. But I'm not interested in it. So we just got Mark. I just said to Mark, oh, do the drilling holes thing. And I mostly did it to scam Ian, because Ian and I have this thing where I say they can't play drilling holes. It's always a disaster. Whenever I'm there and they do it live, they always screw up. They've never once played drilling holes live when I've been there.
Okay.
It was
That
your
sounds like
idea. It was your idea for the 21st anniversary Blu-ray, wasn't it?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so that was, and it was what was really funny about it was one of those things where we did a big call between me and Stephanie and Mark and Rich and Lucy, because I have a whole load of data from the previous convention, so I write down when we sell out of things.
Yeah.
There's no point in saying, oh, we sold out of that, because it might have been we sold out of it 5 minutes before we closed.
Yeah, but
So
if you sold out of it quickly, yeah.
On Friday night, yeah. So I write down, so I've got quite a lot of data on that. And also throughout the years, I sort of make notes about what might be good ideas if they're playing a particular song. So we had this meeting, and then I was like, so we've not got a DVD? And Lucy was like, no. So I said, well, it is 21 years. You could do a best of 21 years. So then we ended up with Tim Sidwell having to join this call cold, while Lucy was like, blame George. But then the thing was, Tim said, look, send me a set list and I'll put it together. He's a very can-do Tim. He's very much like, yeah, I'm sure I can make that work on the back of a fag packet. So Lucy sent the list, and I was with a client all day, and I got on the tube to come home, and I was flicking through the list, and I was like, right, there's no Neverland. There's no This Strange Engine. There was no King, I don't think. Like ones that are absolute bangers at the conventions. So then I had to send a message going, I'm probably overstepping since it's already my idea, but
how's about this?
So Lucy was like, really? And I said, yeah, you've got to have, it can't be like obscure. If it's going to be a best of, it has to be a best of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that Neverland's not been. I mean, I've got beef with you guys about two tracks in particular, and Neverland's one of them. Because you don't show much love to Neverland. I walked down the aisle to Neverland.
Well, I'm sure it was very emotional. It's a wonderful song.
I love Neverland.
It's overplayed. That's all. That's my issue with it.
Come on, what's the other one?
Born to Run. Oh, don't make that face.
No.
I tell you what, I thought I'd got a face for radio today, but
Just smelling here. God dear me.
I love Born to Run. It's poetry. And I grew up in the same town that Steve Hogarth grew up in, and I moved to London. It's, to me, absolutely.
My good lady is from that very same town.
I
was there. I was there on Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, it absolutely really gets me.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when we first set up the podcast, we put a little blurb on, and we said everybody's got an opinion, and everybody's opinion is valid. What we're not going to do is say we love everything if we don't love it. It's great that you like that, and it's weird that I don't like that, because I'm a huge Rothery fan, and it's literally, Rother's soloing and H's lyric, but it just doesn't do it for me. But that's cool. That's cool.
But also what we're saying on the pod as well is this is the band who can 1 minute play No One Can and the next minute play Gaza, and we all take something different from both songs. So this is the whole beauty of it. Is that's such a big range.
Well, I was rapping with Lucy on Friday, because it's no surprises to anyone, but on Friday night, Al and I usually have a bit of a cocktail around 6:37. And on Friday, Al went into the kitchen to mix us a Manhattan, and he put the soundbar on in the kitchen and put Accidental Man on. And I texted Lucy and I was like, I mean, it's not an obvious choice, is it? She was like, yes, but he is Alan.
Hey, what can you say to that? Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm really sorry that I've upset you, but If you'd have asked me in when Marbles came out in the Astoria, watching Neverland, the best thing I've ever heard. You know, it's a classic Marillion track, but I probably just heard it too much. I went through that with King back in the day.
Mm,
I used to play King too much, but they rested it for a while and it's kind of come back round.
yeah, I take your point. I mean, it can never be overplayed for me. And I don't really, with songs I love, I don't really ever, a lot of people went through that with Easter where they were like, yeah, they could give Easter a rest. And in our box at the Albert Hall, when they played Easter, I was the only person on my feet doing the clapping in our box at the end. And I was just like, my mum and dad were there actually,
Yeah.
and they were sitting behind me. And my dad was laughing because he was like, I can't believe you get this excited about this band still. And I was like, oh, yeah.
But with the Royal Albert Hall, you were instrumental in getting them booked for that quite a lot towards, weren't you?
I wasn't. I was instrumental in a lot of the organisation of it because I used to be part of, I used to do one of the nights during the Christmas. They have a 2 week Christmas extravaganza every year. And I used to be responsible for one of the nights. So I'd book all the acts and get the compere and the bands and we mostly used to, so that all the boxers would all be our guests and we'd have multiple hospitality suites going. And then the rest were on public sale. So the arena floor was on public sale. Um, and Lucy had been trying to book it for ages and I never know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not, but Kilimanjaro, that was sort of, I think, their in with
Yeah.
Lucy was they'd been wanting to be Marillion's promoter for ages, and Lucy was their promoter in the UK as well as managing them,
Yeah.
babysitting them, being their emotional support animal. And so Kilimanjaro were really keen to do that, and they sort of dangled in front of her that they could get the Albert Hall for them. And I think Lucy said, if you can get the Albert Hall, you can do a whole tour and we'll see how it goes. I was over at Lucy and Ian's. Alan and I were over at Lucy and Ian's, which we regularly are at weekends. And Lucy said, oh, I've booked the Albert Hall. And it was about, I don't know, 14 months hence. And I said, oh, amazing. Have you got an ordinary let or an exclusive? And she just looked at me and was like, and the meeting's on the 13th of October. Right, okay. So I went with her to the original planning meeting because of the fact that I knew so much, because it's a bit of a curate's egg because it's run by trustees. There's a lot of weird stuff about it that you wouldn't necessarily know. So, for example, I was saying to Lucy, if you're going to want to film in there, they charge you an arm and a leg just to film before
Yeah.
you've even brought your equipment in. And stupid stuff like I'd had a confetti cannon once and they'd charged me like 575 quid for the cleanup of it. So I was like, if you're going to put one of your massive confetti cannons out, you need 1,000 quid in the budget for them to sweep it up. So there was a lot of that sort of involved in
Yeah.
it. And then, because I knew the guys who ran the box office at the time because of the stuff, I was very closely involved with that. And I ran the guest list, which, as you can imagine, was
Huge.
enormous and a constantly moving feast. Because what we said was each band member can have an amount of freebies and an amount that they can allocate, but the people have to pay for. And what that meant was I would give them a code and they rang the box office with that code and they got allocated the seat that I'd got on my little seat map. And of course, people like Pete who were just like, I've been given my marching orders and this is exactly what I will do, absolute dream, and then other members like the night of the gig go, oh, I think my nanny's coming. Did I tell you my nanny was coming? She'll need to sit with the kids. So
Yes. Wow.
so I did that for all of the Albert Hall gigs as well. So yeah, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. My favourite ever thing that I did from William that's so random is back in the 90s. They'd gone on the Anorak tour, I think, and seemed to tour for about 3 years, that album. But they finished up in Bydgoszcz in the centre of Poland. And Lucy rang me and said, we've just realised that we're all going to end up in Bydgoszcz in the centre of Poland. And we've all then got to get a coach back. And it's going to take us, because of the limiter for how many miles an hour they can go and how far they can go per day, it's going to take us like 4 days to get home. So we're going to book some flights. So I was like, right. So, but unfortunately, Bydgoszcz doesn't actually have, at that point, didn't have a proper airport. So we can't get the tickets. So in those days when they all used to travel together, I used to have copies of all their passports. So I flew their tickets out to them so they could fly home.
What?
So I flew, this is where, I don't know if you've heard of the Poland Freaks, but our group that all hung around together were called the Poland Freaks, because actually a big group of us flew to Warsaw and then got the train up to Bydgoszcz, did the gig, did the after show, and then we all came back to Warsaw and had a weekend in Warsaw before we flew home.
Wow, sounds fantastic.
Bit random.
Well, it's great. It's great. So, yeah, just going back to Pontins then. That's obviously where you first met Lucy?
No.
Oh, right, okay.
So when I moved to London in 1994, so next week I'll have been in London 30 years. That was around the time when the internet was just starting to be part of it, and I joined the Freaks list, but I was lurking on there, so I sort of knew who she was. And she was doing the remasters around that time, and she'd wanted someone to do. I think the first one had come out, and she'd got some feedback that the liner notes were interesting, but a bit rambling and a bit grammatically incorrect. And so I'd said that I'd have a look at them because I did journalism training. So I was doing that sort of hands off, and it turned out that Robbie Williams left Take That.
Mm-hmm.
And she and I both got tickets to this secret gig that he did at the Hammersmith Palais. So we decided to meet each other so it was like the second pillar down from the left of the bar or something at 7:30. And we watched the gig together. We both went with other people, watched the gig together, had a really good time, decided to meet for a drink the following week. And I think the next time we got together, she stayed over at mine, and we just literally,
hit it off.
Soulmates.
Fantastic.
So that's 27 years in October.
Wow. Okay. That's quite an important bit of the story that we missed out then, and I didn't know that. So I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, so we always, and we're quite sad because obviously we know when that Robbie Williams gig was. So we always send each other anniversary cards. We're absolute losers. But we do, I mean, I think some people think that our friendship is a bit like of a publicity stunt, but we're total losers. We love each other.
There's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't make you a loser at all. So are you going to see Take That this time?
Yeah, next week and the week after.
Okay, very good. I've got a friend over the road who's going to Leeds this week, so she's looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're going to the O2.
Yeah, but speaking about time of people being friends, we've only got a month to go, and me and His Highness there being mates for 30 years.
Oh, well, that's worth celebrating.
It is.
30 years.
Yeah.
Someone should. Do you know what you should? I'm terrible at telling people what to do. I mean, ask Alan. Ask anyone. But what you should do for that is you should get somebody else to interview you for the podcast to celebrate your 30 years.
It's a good idea. Good idea. It's 30 years of friendship with this fella, and it's my 60th birthday this year as well. So half my life I've known him.
Wow.
Yes, I know.
60.
Only 60. I know I look 70, but I'm only 60.
You're looking well, John. You're looking well.
Thank you. I wasn't fishing for that at all.
But you are.
Well, I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get.
You'll bloody take anything, you will.
You've got to. When you look like this, you've got to. So your friendship with Lucy and Ian must be how you came to sort of convince the president that he was worthy of a book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's weird how that came about. So the first time we talked about it, Lucy and I actually on our own on holiday in Crete. And she was telling me this story about when Ian was a teenager and his mum worked at the BBC and Buddy Rich was on something and Ian was obsessed with Buddy Rich. So his mum got him in and he went and knocked on Buddy Rich's dressing room door. I think he was like 11 or something and was like, "Oh, hi, I'm Ian. I'm a drummer. Can I ask you some questions?" And Buddy was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, come in," and was really lovely to him. And Lucy was telling me this story and I was like, someone has to write this stuff down. And Lucy said, "Well, that you should do that." So we were away on holiday for a week and it kept coming up and we got quite excited about it. And then I came home and I went out for dinner with Alan the next night. Alan's my husband, listeners. And he was like, "Are you absolutely insane?" It's like, you think a great idea would be to write the memoirs of your best friend's husband. And I was like, "Oh, yes, I can see the flaws." You're like, now you point it out, it's obvious. So we sort of put it on the back burner for a couple of years and it kept coming up and kept coming up and it kept going. And in the end, the way we agreed it was Lucy is the band's manager, but she supposedly isn't their individual managers. So we said this will be something that will be a contract between Ian and I.
Yeah.
And so that will mean that I won't get into any beef with Lucy really, because it'll be between Ian and I. And that worked for a bit, but when I started really putting it together and getting drafts together, I was sending them to Ian and he was sending them straight to Lucy and then she was sending me feedback. So we had a couple of bumpy rides with that. But also there were a couple of instances where there were stories that Ian thought, it's fine to leave that in.
Yeah.
And I was on the phone to Lucy going, probably might want to see whether he's going to not want to put this in.
Yeah.
So we'd do a bit of a pincer movement the next time we were together. We'd be like, "See this bit? We're not sure this bit's a good idea."
How long did it take you to pull together then all these stories?
It took a couple of years from doing the first interview to having the book in my hand. And the biggest reason for that was that at the time, well, I work full time and I run my own business. But at the time, my primary client was based in Denver.
Oh, right.
And so I was spending a lot of time in Denver and quite a lot of time in Europe as well. So I was doing it sort of in among. At one point, I was in Denver working with a client, writing the book and running the guest list for one of the albums. Oh. It's Sunday. Why am I doing all this stuff? But yeah, I mean, the part of the issue was I originally had this plan where we were going to go at his life in 5-year chunks. So I'd say, right, talk to me about. So the first thing I did was, tell me about your mum and dad. Tell me about sort of pre-Ian. But of course, you start there and within 25 minutes, you're on tour with Steve Hackett because he's thought of something. So what I then realised was the best bet would be to do a lot of the interviews and record them, just write everything down and try and put it chronologically as I was transcribing the recordings, and then just cut out all the boring stuff. Because there was a lot of.
I was going to say, I couldn't think of any boring stuff. There's so much in there.
It's not that there's a lot of me and him going, was she married to Rula Lenska? Now we don't mean Rula Lenska, do we? We mean, that sort of,
Oh yeah. I mean, there is a theme about people being dead in the book, or are they dead? And
yeah, there was that, but also people kept dying. So Ian would tell me a load of stories about them, and then they'd die. So Ian would ring me and go, "Here, Windsor Davis is dead." I'd be like, "This is your fault. Every time you talk about someone, they're dead."
Oh dear, you don't want to be on that list, do you? You don't want to be in that book.
No. But yeah, no, it was really funny. And what was really funny about it was trying to decide how to present it. And years previously, so once I'd sort of got a bit involved with Marillion, probably after Pontins, I was a bit more sort of known at Racket and stuff. Eric and Colin were quite keen for me to be a bit more involved in stuff. In fact, at one point I had to ring them and say, I don't actually work at Racket, because they'd put my name in a little biog up on the Racket website. And I had to phone them and go, I've actually got a full-time job. It'd be great if, you took that down. But one of the things I got quite involved with for a bit was the Web UK magazine, because Lucy was trying to make it a bit more professionalized. And of course, because I'd got editing skills and stuff. So I'd got involved in that. And then when it was Marbles, Lucy had said each one of the band was going to choose a fan to interview them before Marbles came out. So we all went to Racket and got to listen to it before it came out. And then we got to interview a band member. And I met Steve Hogarth in the Eagle and Child in Oxford, and I was just really misbehaved in that interview. And so when I wrote it up sort of as it happened. And then I sent it to Steve Hogarth and said, you're probably going to want to let me know what of this you want. And it came back, literally pinged back like that with no time. He said, I'm not reading it, publish and be damned. So I did.
Okay.
And quite a lot of people contacted Racket and said, we really like that style where it feels like we're in the room with two people having a conversation. So when I started writing everything up, I was like, the advice I'd been given about writing a biography was take yourself out of it entirely. But the thing with Ian is he's a very interactive, like the more you encourage him, the more stuff you get out of him.
Yeah.
So actually in a way, so I went back to that original way that I'd done the Steve Hogarth interview and decided to just invite readers into the space that we were in.
I think it works really well.
It does, yeah.
It's a nice. We talked about it on Ian's episode a couple of weeks ago. It really shows off Ian's character and his sense of humour, and it captures, his personality really well.
And it captures the fact that you captured the fact that he's, the drumming's been like his life since he was a small kid.
Yeah.
That's been, he's had this vision from the very, very beginning of what he wanted to do, and he's just gone for it.
And he loves it.
Yeah.
And he holds himself to a really high standard. Whenever we go there, he's always showing me like YouTube clips of new drummers that he's seen, or, I went to see blah, blah, and Gavin Harrison is absolutely amazing. And, I heard this, and have you heard, and he's always looking for inspiration and to be better. And it was interesting when I interviewed the band, that they all said he brought them all up a notch in professionalism, because he was so much more professional than they were, and so much more accomplished a musician than they were, that they all raised their game to meet him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think our interview that we did with him was so easygoing and fun. There was no. I think we've been a lot more nervous on interviews before, and he completely put us at ease, and just he was up for a laugh.
We just had a few notes, didn't we? I mean, I was really nervous about interviewing H, because I don't know why, but with Ian, we just had a few pointers, and we were prepared to let him do exactly what you've said. He kind of starts here, ends up right over there, but he just talks with such enthusiasm and humour, and
he's just got the most enormous heart. And I think because he's a big bloke and he's in charge of the drums, and he walks around with his shades on, and he always wears black, you can be forgiven for thinking that he's quite austere or unfriendly or whatever, but he's just got this enormous heart. And it's absolutely incredible that people that haven't necessarily seen that. And that's the bit that I was really keen for people to see, that he's absolutely hysterically funny.
Yes. Yeah.
But also the fact that he's just an all-round nice bloke. I mean, genuinely, if he drops me off at the station, if I've gone up on the train rather than driving, when he drops me off, he'll still say, give us 3 rings when you get home. What's going to happen to me? But it's funny and it's caring. He wants to know when I'm home. And
Yeah.
if he hasn't heard from Alan in a while, he'll send me a message saying, have we got any proof of life?
How did you feel when Lucy and Ian got together then?
Well, it was really clear to me very early that Ian had a thing for Lucy. And I think, and it's really funny because I used to I used to journal quite a lot of my Marillion stuff, and it's all sort of lost to the annals of time. And originally I included some of it in the book as an intro, but then I took it all out because it was just only interesting to me, really. But they got together in August 2002, and I know this because I was living in Seattle. And in the October prior to that, we had gone to, can't remember the name of the pub, but it's on the Cowley Road in Oxford, I believe, to see White Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian came. I tell you, Ian came and Steve Rothery came. I could tell you a very funny, quite rude story about Steve Rothery that I should probably keep to myself. So anyway, we got to the gig. And I went to the bar and Ian came over and said, "Oh, let me get you a drink, George." And by this time I knew him quite well. "Let me get you a drink, George." So I said, "No, you're all right." And he was just standing chatting, and I said, "Are you ever going to tell Lucy that you're in love with her?"
Oh,
And he just looked at me in like absolutely like, "What are you talking about?" And I thought, well, I thought I'd just ask. And that was in the October, and then they didn't get together until the following August. Just absolute bloody torture. And then, of course, what happens is they went to the pictures because they'd been going to the cinema together for,
half a years, yeah.
we're going to the cinema. I was like, these are dates that you haven't realised are dates, Lucy. No, they're not. Anyway, eventually they went out and, if she needed a new car, firstly, he'd be like, "Oh, I'll take you to have a look at cars." And then he'd try and buy it for her. And I'd be like, this is not normal behaviour of a non-boyfriend. It's like... And I used to catch up with Lucy on a Sunday morning, Seattle time. And not early because I'd always been out on Saturday night. And my phone rang this particular morning quite early. And, when you have one of those premonitions of, all right, I see. And she was a bit traumatized, but yeah, I mean, I remember saying to her before when I was saying to her, it's going to happen, and she said, "No, I don't think it is." And I said to her, "Look, as your best friend, I should warn you off because I knew because Ian had told me the stories of his previous two wives."
Yeah.
So I said, "The problem is I just really love Ian and I think we're a really good match." And Craig, I think you were there at Lucy and Ian's wedding when I did the speech.
Yes.
And Ian did a speech where he was like, "Yeah, you can stop threatening me now."
Yes.
But he started that years ago. I did some work for them for something. I can't remember what it was. And he sent me a check and I took it into the Camden branch of HSBC. And they used to turn checks over and write notes on the back. And she turned it over and she started laughing. I said, "What?" And she held it up to the glass. And they'd written, "Now stop threatening us," on the back of it.
Well, when we told him you were coming on here, he said, "Oh, I should probably pay him now, then, shouldn't I?"
Yeah, was it what the question said? Is anything that we've got to ask her? Says, can you lend him a fiver?
Yes, that was his question to you.
And what was it Lucy asked? It was something to do with the merchant. It was to do with the tea towels, wasn't it?
Yes.
We've already touched on the tea towels. As to which bit of merch you're most proud of?
The ones I'm really proud of are the ones where she says they won't sell, and then I can just lord it over her every time. And the thing is, because we love each other, we are arseholes to each other. And so every time I'm like, "Are we doing bears?" Because they're not very popular.
So what's the feeling like at the end of Port Zealand then on the Sunday night when you've packed it all back up into the trolleys and you're kind of lying down in that area that we know you all go to for a bit of a lie down when it's a pretty dark area, but What's the feeling like then?
I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it always upsets me that Lucy and Stephanie are so glad that it's over. Because although I'm absolutely the tiredest I've probably ever been on those Sunday nights, and God, in March coming, it's going to be even worse because they keep getting longer and longer and longer, and I'm getting older and older and older. But I'm sort of still quite euphoric about it because I love it because it's not my normal life.
Yeah,
You know, it's a break from serious George, and it's fun, and the team are brilliant, and you're there. It's just a great big bowl of love.
yeah,
And it always upsets me a little bit that, Lucy and Stephanie are always so relieved when it's over because I'm just like, it doesn't feel like that at all to me. And the merch team, we literally, as we finish it all, and we're not allowed to bring the truck over to the back of merch. So we have to transport everything from the back of the sports hall back over to the tent where the truck is.
yeah,
Because you're not allowed to bring the truck on once we've got fans on site. So it's all a bit messy and stuff. And then we all meet back in the sports hall to say goodbye to each other. And we're all just sitting around. No one wants to leave. You'd think everyone would be like, bye, I'm going to the pub. Everyone's a bit like, hmm. And it's literally everyone's like, so same time in 2 years then? And Richard Nagy, who, as you know, does merch for Marillion on the tours, decided that he wanted to do it for the first time last year. And I was saying to him, it's not like being on the tour. It's really, really, it's a scale you can't even imagine. And it's really hard work. And he was just like, oh my God, you warned me, but this is just insane. And so when everyone was like, right, see you in 2 years, said, Rich, what do you reckon? He was like, oh yeah, count me in.
But there's one thing that John doesn't know, but George will definitely know from our sitting in that place at the end of a Port Zealand
Hmm.
weekend, is Georgina told me where to get married.
I
okay.
did. I did. I was lying on the floor quite drunk, and Craig came and laid down at the side of me, and he was like, guess what? I'm getting married. I was like, oh, you clever sausage. And we were talking about it. And I suddenly, in my normal way where I said, I'll tell you what you should do. I was like, tell you what you should do. And I had just been to a really good friend of mine's wedding at the Tynemouth Grange. And I was like, it's such a great venue. We had such a brilliant time, one of my favourite ever weddings. And so yeah, so I'm still got some cylinders working at the end of the weekend.
It was fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so came home, told the missus to be, went to had a look and booked, and we all had a jolly good time.
Yeah,
We did. But it's funny at the end of Port Zealand because it feels like a really long time until the next one. But because Lucy starts working on the next one pretty much immediately, she and I are sort of talking about it on and off. And I try not to do too much. I only talk about work if she talks about it, really,
yeah.
until we get to a year out. And then there's things like, I need to understand how many days we're there for, what songs are getting played, because I need to know how many people I need for how long and what we're going to be selling. Um, but yeah, from about a year out, I am fully engaged, not fully engaged in it time wise, but usually I'm doing something towards Port Zealand most weeks now until we get there.
Wow. Does that mean you know the set list for next year?
Not now, no.
I was going to say
No one does.
they
No
won't
one
have,
does.
they don't normally that organized, are they? But
What is brilliant, and I took Steve Rothery to task about this last year, is they will decide on a set list and then I get sent it. And then I will come up with merch ideas based around songs. So someone complained actually last time that the merch is really boring because it's just a lot of things with words written on them. And I was like, yeah, that's me. Um, but otherwise it's just a duck with Marillion on it.
yeah,
It's but But if there's a lyric that's got ducks in it, I will find it and I will put it on that duck.
No, I'm with you. It needs to, it can't just say Marillion, you know.
Yeah, what's the point of that?
There
So
isn't one.
anyway, we'd done a run of something, I can't remember what it was, and then like a week before they cut the song from the set. So I'd got like a bit of orphan merch. And Steve Rothery was like, no one will care. And it's like, well, but just I care because it looks weird that I've made this bit of merch for a song you're not playing.
Should get them to come and do an acoustic version in the. No, don't do that. Merch is oversubscribed anyway, isn't it?
Oh God.
The queues for the merch are huge. So now I'm recording in April 2024. So we are on the run up to next year's conventions. I believe they're about to be announced.
3rd of May, I think.
3rd of May, yes, yeah. And
hello, little kitten.
There are 8 of them next year, aren't there?
Yes.
That has been announced. Hello.
Yes. That is one cute cat. Yes, there are. I've chosen my 3.
Okay.
But there's one quite rogue one that I'm still toying with.
Okay. That was going to be my question. Have you picked where you're going to go?
Yeah, well, Port Zealand I have to.
Yeah.
I always do the UK one, and then we tend to choose another one.
Yeah. Okay.
Because obviously Alan's got to get time off work, and it's quite hard for me because my work is so different to this.
Do you want to tell everybody what your work is?
So I'm a leadership and transformation person. So that means I do a lot of leadership psychology work. I do a lot of executive coaching, but I also do kind of transformation programs. So where there's big change in organizations, I go in and help them manage the sort of psychological cycle that goes with change. But I do it, I've been really fortunate in the fact that I do it in some quite high profile places. And because of that, there's quite a juxtaposition between that and telling those people that I'm going off. And I actually had to say to a client the other day who had found out about the book, please don't read it. Please don't read it.
That's
I
my
can
other
remember
line.
because I was not on Facebook for years and years and years. And then I had to join Facebook because after I think the first Port Zealand, Mark Kennedy had uploaded some video of me headbanging to System of a Down on stage in the Adventure Factory. And I was like, firstly, I need to know that that's out there. And secondly, it needs to come down because, I'm quite well respected within my
It's not you. It's just a doppelganger. It's not you.
I know the weird thing is that I was friends with, so I always had a no colleagues rule with Facebook, always did, still do. And a really good friend of mine left the company we both worked for and then immediately friended me on Facebook. I accepted, all fine. And then 5 years later, he was the HR director at a massive American company, and asked me to go in and do some work with them. And over the course of that time, there was a Port Zealand, and he was very annoyed that I unfriended him.
Well, this just had to be done, didn't it? You've got a rule. You've got to stick to it.
Yeah, but Lucy's really funny with the conventions because she's very open to new things. And I think some people, they send messages saying, why don't you come to, I don't know, Iceland and do one, and if she thinks it'll work, she'll go and have a look at them. So she does go off and recce places that people recommend to her and tries to make it work. Sometimes I think to her detriment because people will then be like, why did you choose that? Well, someone thought it'd be a good idea. And sometimes it means they end up playing in some really interesting or beautiful places. Like, I'd never been to Lisbon, and Lisbon is beautiful. In fact, people say to me quite often about Barcelona, and I say I don't bother going to Barcelona, go to Lisbon. It's got everything Barcelona's got, but it's nicer.
Mm. Right.
That's going to be massively dividing, isn't it?
And we
People in Barcelona still buy my book.
we usually upset somebody on here, so it's okay.
So with the book, if you never thought about doing an audio version of it and use some of the recordings and things and clip it together?
Yeah, well, clipping them together would be really difficult. I mean, there's hours and hours and hours of it. And also, it'd be like when I'd start writing something, typing something up, I'd suddenly realise that Ian would have mentioned 15 people all by their first name, who I got from the inference were famous people, but I didn't know who they were.
So
And so I have to ring him and say, you know, and so there was quite a lot of that. So there was a bit of a talk after we did, for the couch convention, we did a reading from it. And there was a bit of a talk of that. And I think it was Mike Barton was really, really gunning for us to do like a couple of evenings with, where he and Ian and I just had like a sofa on the stage. And we did some readings from the book, but also took some questions. And I talked to Ian about, because there's stories that didn't make it into the book, because in print, probably somebody would have a problem with. And I didn't want to create any problems for Lucy. So there was quite a lot. In fact, just to give you an idea, there's a chapter called Love and Other Drugs that at one point was 4 chapters long. And between the things like, I know I'm close to and love Ian's son, so got to think about he's got 2 kids that are going to read the book. He's got 2 ex-wives who might read the book. Some of his friends who he toured with who maybe are no longer with us, there's stories about their things. So it was kind of like, if you tell me a story and we're going to publish it, it has to be that person is able to, has the right of reply.
Yeah. I think there's something in that evening with, though.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, Mike Barton, Mike Barton has more hours in his day than anybody else I know.
I don't know how he fits it all in.
Yeah, he must do. He must do. He's got a time turner. I'm absolutely sure of it. But he'd got it all worked out. It was like, you could start at Pendley Court Theatre because it's right near Lucy, and you can have a little glass of wine, and you can have a couple of easy chairs, and he'd got it really quite well worked through.
I think Mike's related to Arthur Daly myself, but yeah. He's got more cunning plans than Baldrick.
I know, and works really hard. Does a really
and plays really hard. He's always doing stuff at the weekends, either with Helena or with Still Marillion or seeing bands.
He's also got more successful cunning plans than a certain Derek as well.
Whoa.
Well,
that's a tumbleweed moment, Craig. Well done. Yeah.
Hey,
one of my merch team is booked into Fisher's last gig, which is giving us a bit of a clash because, as you know, we have to go out there a couple of days before because the amount of stuff. I mean, we at the shop we stock everything that Racket stocks, plus all the extras and news that either I come up with or Rich comes up with or Stephanie comes up with, because usually I've got a great big list and then we get on and it's really funny actually, because Mark Kennedy's been trying to make a football shirt for about 40 years, and he and I had been discussing, and I quite like the baseball shirts, which we never get to do but always end up in later conventions, but I said to him, we're going to do the football shirt this year, right? And he was like, yeah. So we worked on the badge for the football shirt. And then during that meeting, it ended up becoming a running technical. I think that's the word.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. Do I look like I run? You never see a happy runner, ever. But we ended up with that shirt, which absolutely stiffed. I think we sold about 4 of. And it was so annoying because it's like, the football shirt would probably have been a good thing. I mean, I've still got people who wear the tracksuit top that we
That's what I
did.
was going to say. The Slazenger top that you did is brilliant.
Yeah, there's still a lad, can never remember his name, who at Butlins, I said to him that the badge on that says songs about death and water in Esperanto, which it does, it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
And every time I see him, he goes, songs about death and water.
It's I mean, that that football shirt was a little short, wasn't it? The football shirt from that time. It was,
Yes, the
it was,
navy blue one. Yes, it
yeah,
was.
it was a little short, but the Slazenger tracksuit top is probably the best piece of merch for a long time, I would say. And
Yeah.
with the embroidered badge on it, it was a wonderful piece of kit.
It's getting harder and harder with merch as well because usually what would happen is I identified a supplier that we used in the UK and everything would get sent to Racket. And then Rich would have a big container at Racket and he would count everything into that container as it arrived. So we knew the counts were right for everything. And then it would just get put on the truck and then driven over. Once the truck had unloaded everything at the tent, it would drive round to the back of the sports hall. They'd unload it all to the back of the sports hall. And then when I got there, it'd all be ready for me to go. But because of Brexit, we can't have anything made in the UK now.
Mm.
So everything has to get made in Europe and then shipped directly to the site, which is just such a nightmare because it's really hard to control quality because we don't see anything.
No,
We don't see it really until you guys do.
yeah,
So it can be quite difficult, especially, the supplier will come back and say, oh, we couldn't do that in a graphite grey, so we've done it in a marl. And I'm like, that's fine, apart from the fact the writing on it's white, and white writing on marl doesn't really show up, whereas on graphite grey it would have looked quite cool, So it's like, but we don't see it till we get there, and then there's
Yeah.
nothing we can do about it.
no. I mean, we spent a bit of time with Mark Kennedy last time, and we're aware of some of the challenges that you had
Oh,
last time. Um,
oh, that poor man. To be honest, I feel for Vanessa because their house
yeah,
was like
yeah,
Steptoe's yard for a while.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, he is so brilliant. I mean, he did all of that, all of the artwork for the book and stuff. And it was really funny because we did this thing at Lucy and Ian's where Ian had just got a new Ludwig Black Beauty snare drum, and it was still in the conservatory. And I said to Lucy, I think the front of the book should be black, and then it should have a drum head with like a packet of fags, some money, his sunglasses and stuff. And we mocked it up there, took a picture of it, and that's what we finished up using on the front. That ended up
yeah,
being it. We were going to
yeah.
get a professional photographer to do it, but it finished up just being what we used in the end. And Mark really can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear because that literally is a bed sheet behind to get the lighting right.
You wouldn't know. You really wouldn't know. They're great. Yeah, he's done a great job.
Yeah, started his career doing Cakey Boy
He did
t-shirts.
start his career doing Cakey Boy t-shirts. Yes.
I've still got, I don't know if you remember this, Craig, but I've still got my Merch Queen t-shirt,
Oh, yeah.
which you guys did for me it was the first Port Zealand, because I don't know if you remember, we were upstairs in that conference room for merch the first year, and it had full length windows that were curtains, and you gave it to me, and I absolutely loved it. And I just went behind the curtains and took the t-shirt off that I was wearing and put it on behind with the whole queue there and everything, just got changed behind the curtains. Classy. Keeping it classy since 2007.
Absolutely. There's a t-shirt.
So yeah, so we were up in that. That was ridiculous. We loaded everything in before anybody was on site into that room upstairs. And I said to the guys, we can't be upstairs because we've got no wheelchair access. It's fine, there's a lift. Well, there was a lift, and then there were 5 steps up from that. So we ended up like having to get people to carry people in wheelchairs upstairs, which not
Bugger.
ideal. But also when we went to leave, the kitchens that we'd loaded in through were being used for dinner on the Sunday. And so they wouldn't let us load out through the kitchens. And the chef was going absolutely berserk because we had used the dumbwaiter between our floor and the kitchen. And then obviously everything, so the crew were coming in and out through the kitchen because I'd got a crew at the top posting everything into the dumbwaiter and the crew at the bottom taking it out into a van. And the chef was going berserk. So we didn't do that the following year. 2 years later, we were out at that boat club. Do you remember at the end of the pier?
It's all
the end of the
glass
pier.
fronted, isn't it? Yeah.
And Scotty, the truck driver, backed a Pantechnicon down that pier.
Wow.
Jeez.
It was unbelievable. It must have had an inch on either side. I've never seen anything like it. So clever. We did that 2 years, and then we moved into the sports hall, and they have been, for the last 3 conventions, 4 if we include 2025, they've been threatening to modify the site, and the sports hall is one of the things that's going to go.
Right.
So every time we do it, Lucy and I are like, is the sports hall still there? And I'm like, yeah, will it still be there?
The only space you can use now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to totally rethink merch. And I do occasionally have thoughts of, people could pre-order their t-shirts and we could put them in their chalets.
Yeah.
And that would mean that initial rush of everyone coming to get their t-shirt. But the problem that we've got with that is that, someone's got to be there to do that. And then, I was thinking, well, maybe, Port Zealand could put it in the welcome packs and we could just include a t-shirt in the cost. Then all they've got to do is put the right sizes in. And then I'm going to spend the whole of the first 2 days with people returning them because they've ordered the wrong size. Because, for example, last year, the double XL women's was smaller than the single XL.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. I did make life very difficult for myself last year by deciding on Friday night because we were out of a lot of the stuff that people really liked. So we were out of hoodies and we were out of the Care t-shirt. So I decided on Friday night to ask the guys who did most of our merch for us if they could do print on demand. The kit was 250 kilometres away at 6 o'clock on Friday night. And at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, we were doing print on demand.
Wow.
And they didn't sleep at all.
Wow.
So we'll probably be better planned for print on demand if we do it this year.
Yeah, you'll basically chain them to the machines from like 6 o'clock on the Friday morning.
Mark and Vanessa were doing it at one point so that the people could go and eat because they hadn't eaten anything.
Yeah, I think there's probably a documentary in just following the merch crew.
Yeah, it's weird. No one ever comes and films us. No one ever comes and interviews us. Occasionally we used to get people come and film us when Kirsten used to work for us because she was young and gorgeous. Although she's back in 2025, spoiler alert. So she's had 2 kids. She had one of them on the Sunday of the 2023 convention.
Wow.
So she was planning to come pop in and visit us. And then the next minute, Renee came over, and there's a tradition with babies in Holland where you serve these weird little cakes with icing sprinkles on the colour of the baby. So, pink for a girl and blue for a boy, because obviously the Netherlands is very progressive. And he came over with a tray of these pink things. I was like, oh my God, she's had the baby.
Fantastic.
Well, at least she wasn't their standard printed t-shirts when she was giving birth.
No, which was a possibility at one point. I occasionally, the first year at Pontins, I kept a really big diary of it because it was such an amazing thing, and then never used it. I was going to use it for the Web UK, but they didn't want it. They don't think people are that interested in it. And then for Butlins, I did it again because I think someone had said, oh, we think people might be interested now they've seen the concept, and then it didn't get used again. So I've never done it since. I think I put a bit of some of my journal in the back of the book
Right. It might be something that maybe Tim could do. I think a bit of time lapse photography would be great because of the way you transform the entire merch area from wheeling it in, just to show the sheer volume of the work that you
The
do.
scale of it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just a fixed head camera somewhere so that it doesn't have to have somebody with it.
I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what you do for the band. There's probably another podcast in other things you've done for the band over the years, but we heartily recommend the book, which is back on sale at Marillion.com, and it is called Do I Owe You Money? How much is it now?
12 quid, I think.
12 quid. There you go. Don't quote us on that one. Plus VAT, probably.
There's
Yeah,
no
that
VAT on
could be.
books.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if,
There's no VAT on printed books, you're right. Yeah.
okay,
There is VAT if you buy them on Kindle, though.
Yes.
all right. Something else I've learned tonight then. But if you see George in Port Zealand on the merch, please say hi and buy lots from her. But we would like to thank you for being on the pod this evening, George.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Absolutely any time. If you're doing a live pod, come and see me at the merch desk.
Oh,
We've got demands from people who want us to do a pod at Port Zealand, so yeah.
Yeah. We shall get you on the pod again. Absolutely. You're welcome back anytime. But thank you very much for chatting to us this evening.
I love the pod. I do listen to it, so thank you for having me.
No, you're more than welcome.
And a big distance hug from both of us.
Yeah, definitely. But when we see you in the flesh, it'll be a proper hug next time.
I
But
will collect.
it just goes to say good night from me,
And it's good night from him.
and it's good night from George.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care.
Stay alive.
Yay!
I always thought that was him that said stay alive.
It is. He's done it the
We
wrong way
changed
around.
it, man.
Through me, I do take care, and he does stay alive. But you know.
Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out Marillion.com, fishmusic.scot or fishmusic.eu for all the good stuff.